Are they here now?
Are we missing teams?
Hi, this is
Yes.
Arushi. I have joined.
Yes, Arushi, can you please unmute yourself and switch on your video so that you can see both of it is working? And please rename
Am
yourself.
I visible?
Yes, thank you so much. Where is your other teammate?
I believe he'll just be joining in a second.
Please make it as soon as possible. Akankshi, you can take over. I think we can move on with the tech checks. If they're not here, then
Just let me know whether the buzzer is loud and clear.
Yes, it's
yeah,
perfect.
that's perfect.
Shaya sir is here too. We can begin. Take over, Akanksha.
We're still waiting for participants to join, I believe.
I think we can move on. If they join by then, they do.
The order of speaking is in the same order as has been mailed to me, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for logging back in. Welcome to the semifinals of VIVAAD. The format for today is the parliamentary form of debate where 3 participants from each school is going to be given a chance to speak. The principal speaker will be allotted a total time of 3 minutes 30 seconds. The deputy speaker will be given a total time of 2 minutes 30 seconds, and the whip speaker will be given a total time of 1 minute 30 seconds. The schools have been given stances for and against, and based on that, they are going to give their speeches. Over to you, Shiv.
Yes, thank you. So I'll introduce the judges for the day. We have 2 judges for today. Joining us for the semi-finals round, Mr. Shayuk Chakraborty and Ms. Moyuddin Mukherjee. Mr. Shayuk Chakraborty is an advocate of the Calcutta High Court, practicing mainly civil and constitutional matters. He is the Chamber Junior of the former Advocate General of West Bengal, barrister at law, and senior advocate Joyanta Kumar Mithro, and is also a part of the panel of lawyers for the state of West Bengal. He is a Rotarian, serving as Charter Secretary of the Rotary Club of Calcutta Heritage. An avid debater and quizzer, he has also won several Best Speaker and winning team prizes while debating at the school, college, and open levels. Ms. Moyuri Mukherjee. She is a recent graduate from Presidency University, Kolkata. She was a delegate at the Difficult Dialogues London School of Economics South Asia Summit in 2016 and was a part of the Calcutta Debating Circle UK India Debate Tour held in London in 2017. Moyuri has also won several national level debating competitions and she has been a panelist at many youth events. Currently the debate coach at the Heritage School, Kolkata. Her other activities include conducting regular public speaking workshops in association with the Calcutta Debating Circle. That was it from our side for the introduction of the judges. Moderator, sir, you can take over now.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for the introductions. And I am assuming that all the participants are already on board. They would have got the motion at 6:55-ish this morning from me, and I hope that they're prepared. I'm also quite sure that they are aware of the speaking times allotted to each. And so they will know the the principal speakers are Devangshu from Birla High School, Scarlett from Delhi Public School Ruby Park, Somdatta from Mahadevi Birla World Academy, Sri Shikshayatan represented by Sudiksha Basu, and South Point School by Harmanpreet Singh. Our first speaker this morning on the motion given to you is Devangshu Chaudhary speaking for the motion as the principal speaker, allotted 3 minutes and 30 seconds from Birla High School. Devangshu, you will get a bell, I guess 40 seconds before your time is up. and then you need to wind up. We need to maintain strict time control. So Devanshu, over to you, and the two judges will be waiting to hear you. So over to you, Devanshu.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, perfect. So, may I begin?
Yes, please.
A very good morning to one and all present here. A very interesting morning, I must say. So today the motion before the House says that glorification of individual hinders the development of sports. And ladies and gentlemen, at the very onset of this debate, we need to understand glorification of individuals is inevitable. And its inevitability puts a huge pressure on the individual being glorified to perform exceedingly well, or in simple words, outdo himself or herself on every occasion. Now, what is the problem with it? The problem is that it is not a sporadic expectation. This performance pressure is constant throughout. So what does this do? This essentially does two things. Either it pushes the glorified sports person to consume performance enhancement drugs or any other kind of unethical means to stay on top of his class at every occasion, or it leads to mental health problems leading to the individual's decline in his sporting career. Now, the moment they engage with any kind of an unfair means, such as the performance enhancement drugs or even match fixing up to that extent, it is a direct hindrance to that development of the sport because it is unethical. Ladies and gentlemen, we must understand that today, or from several years, sports has had a very dynamic nature and it has to abide by certain ethics. Talking about ethics, this brings me to my second constructive. What happens when players are put to some prominent positions? What happens when players are put to some prominent positions because of leading to their classes? The result is that even if other players are very good, they won't get a chance to play effectively, rendering their talent and skills useless. Thus, glorification of individuals leads to a depletion of human capital, ladies and gentlemen, which in turn hinders development of sports. People's talent is not justified up to that extent. Let me take two examples here. Let's consider Rishabh Pant and Virat Kohli's performance in the last test matches against Australia. Even though Rishabh Pant has actually made us win the match, the point here being that if the same thing would have been done by Virat Kohli, he would have made a national hero. And the point is that even if Rishabh Pant did it, he has not received that level of acknowledgement. Leave that, ladies and gentlemen. Let us consider even Mahendra Singh Dhoni and Ridhiman Saha. Mahendra Singh Dhoni, up to the end of his career, was not being able to perform up to the level which he had been performing. And we must consider that. We need to acknowledge the fact. Whereas Ridhiman Saha, who had been having a constant level of performance in these particular matches, wasn't even given a chance just because of the sheer glorified nature of that particular sports person. Which also brings me to the third constructive and the most constructive point which I would like to point here today, ladies and gentlemen, because it is the need of the hour. Sport is one of the world's primary venues for the contradictory processes that make up the construction of masculinities. Gender norms have been such that women have been seen to be belonging to the households. The concept of manhood and masculinity have taken up pervasive roles in majority of men engaging in sports. This has created a historical gender divide and thus has inevitably led to the glorification of majority of males. Thus, glorification of individuals hinders development of sport because sport is supposed to be all inclusive. Ladies and gentlemen, I repeat myself, it is supposed to be all inclusive and respecting all genders. This is not the case today, ladies and gentlemen. Development and evolution can only happen when a level playing field is provided. But pervasive gender roles and norms within this glorification process have led to a severe hindrance in sports. Severe glorification of athletes leads to intensifying patriarchy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Devanshu. You finished on time. And judges, do you have a column for marking on your sheets, or there's no round for questioning? Because I haven't seen your mark.
We do not have a ground for questions.
Right. Okay. Fine. The second speaker is from Birla Vidya Niketan, and she will naturally be speaking against the motion. And again, a principal speaker, Arushi Singh. Arushi, you may start now.
Thank you, sir. Greetings to the House at large. Before we, as side opposition, put forth our points on the topic, let me first define the ambit of this debate and the motion itself. Glorification, the act of describing something as admirable, especially unjustifiably. Okay. Hinders is an obstacle. But the most important word in today's motion is development. In the simplest term, development can be defined as bringing about social change that allows people to achieve their human potential. I, Arushi Singh, as the principal speaker, I'm going to start our case with two primary constructs that without glorification, no sport can grow, sustain, and develop in the long run. And secondly, the glorification of athletes from certain backgrounds lifts not only the younger fans, but entire communities, leading to inclusivity. The Deputy Speaker Utkarsh Mittal will stress on 2 points: the adulation by youth, source of inspiration, and the economic and financial growth and development in sports. The Whip Speaker Adveer Singh will conclude our case. Let me start with a simple, irrefutable statement. Sports make the sportsmen, just as sportsmen make the sports. Which are the most glorified athletes in India? Cricketers. Which is the most glorified sport in India? Cricket. Which sport has the most resources, the most infrastructure, the most scouted talent? I mean, Dipanshu himself gave so many examples of cricketers, so it's clearly cricket. Which sport has the richest board in the world? Thanks to the multitude of sponsors and audience, it's BCCI. Which basically proves that glorification is a sport directly proportional to its development. That's what the statistics show, and it's what we all see happening daily around us. So why can't the proposition see that? The proposition definitely underestimates the power of glorification. Let's take into consideration the current and past Olympic teams and winners from India. Every winner is glorified by the government in a matter that is nothing but extravagance. From awards to interviews, endorsements to investment in the sport itself, a seemingly invisible sport makes the headlines in every newspaper across the nation. Speakers of opposition have also opposed glorification of athletes. But what good is a sport without its own athletes being glorified? What has sports provided to athletes that did not get glory that they deserve? Empty bellies in the clutches of poverty. The 8 golden medal winner, Geeta Kumar, turns to selling vegetables. The tale of unfortunate athletes doesn't end here. Mark Wells, the Olympic athlete, to part ways with his prize gold medal due to economic hardships. Does this image of our beloved athletes grow sports and encourage younger dreamers to go into this profession? In a country like India, where there are diverse communities, this is my second point, by the way, it is very important to validate the struggle and bring glory to the marginalized communities. It gives them an identity and brings them into mainstream. This is the inclusivity that Dipanshu should have stressed upon, not the inclusivity that he mentioned. Deepa Karmakar and Mary Kom are just one of the few, but the most pertinent example is Milkha Singh, who became the flying Sikh by bringing validation to the Sikh community and the struggles they faced during the partition. Moreover, this inclusivity acts as encouragement and acceptance from students and communities. Seeing a colored person rise makes you believe that you can do it. That the glorification of these lives is what leads to real development in sports and all forms of life. Moreover, I agree when the opposition says that no one should be put on a pedestal. It's a lot of pressure for them, but for the development of sports, not the individual, but the development of the sport in itself. And for those individuals who idolize the same from rural and backward areas, it makes all the difference in the world. The glorification of athletes happens because they are leaders. They inspire people to grow, to believe, and to break their boundaries. And without these fans, and without this pressure, without these aspiring athletes, the development of sports would remain a far-fetched dream even today. Thank you.
Thank you, Arushi. A very passionate presentation. And the first two speakers, the two principal speakers, one said it was inevitable and he was speaking for the motion, and the other one said it's the only way that they can be lifted out of poverty, a sports person. So, and she was speaking against. The third speaker this morning is a deputy speaker who has a little less time, just 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And the first deputy speaker of the morning is Judhajit Ghosh from Birla High School.
Yes.
So, Judhajit, yes.
So
Please start. Yeah.
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Judhajit Ghosh of Birla High School, and I stand vehemently for the motion which states that glorification of individuals hinders the development of sports. Now, the first thing that we need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is a stark difference between recognition and glorification. We can recognize the success of the Indian hockey team in Tokyo 2020, but glorifying them would be to shield them from all possible criticism, constructive or not. And criticism, ladies and gentlemen, is necessary, even crucial, for the improvement of an individual or a group, which in turn would be better for the sport itself. From a purely economic aspect, better results equal better sponsorships, better viewerships, and greater incentives for the government to invest in the sport. Now, also building on what Devanshu said before me, glorification of individuals puts on them a burden to perform exceedingly well that may lead to using performance enhancement drugs or mental health issues. But we also need to understand that glorification of individuals also in general creates a toxic environment wherein spectators turn exceedingly hostile out of failure. Just refer to all the cases of players being attacked or their homes being picketed. Immediately comes to mind is the fact that Andres Escobar was murdered in the aftermath of the 1994 World Cup, reportedly as a retaliation for having scored an own goal, which contributed to the team's elimination from the tournament. We need to understand that sports, much like movies and music, is entertainment, except for the fact that the outcomes here are much more real. And this might sound like a centrist approach of sorts, but the truth is, we need to be more moderate in our attitudes towards sports persons. Coming to my next constructive, ladies and gentlemen, glorification of individuals creates imitation rather than innovation. Sports by nature has to be dynamic. Glorification of set styles or approaches to a sport created by glorified individuals that makes sports static. This inhibits innovations and create certain stereotypes, which in turn hinders development. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end my speech. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Utkarsh. That was a well-prepared speech, given the very short time you've had from 7 a.m. in the morning. And following Utkarsh, speaking for the motion is Pushkar Pandey from the Birla High School. He is Utkarsh, who will speak against the motion from Birla Vidya Niketan. So Utkarsh, please switch on your video. I think Mayuri has a request. Yes. And please start.
In times of such vast reach of social media, wherein the smallest of achievements go viral, inspirations from and glorification of national talents will always be there. It's a basic need for us humans to have stories to inspire us and people to look up to. Idolization is what I'm leading to over here. Whenever glorified sportsmen win, such as PV Sindhu, MS Dhoni, Neeraj Chopra, young people like us get motivated to follow their footsteps by seeing their splendor, the fame they command, a reflection upon their tough journey till this podium place by media outlets fuels the recently ignited spark of interest in pursuing a primary career in that very sport. The fact that I can list these names from the top of my head is a testament to the fact that these sportsmen, through their glorification by any which way, have left their imprint on my memory. This very aspect of glorification justifies the practice of it. It induces fresh talent and keeps the sport going on. Due to the very nature of athletics, due to the short span career of a sportsman, the industry needs to have a constant influx of players, and inspiration is the golden key to this lock. And publicity, a public figure to represent the sport, is the key to inspiring the youth. This publicity, if not always, is a result of industrial endorsements, media interviews, and felicitations, all of which is again coined as glorification. And not to mention that these endorsements are the very reason sportsmen are able to survive after their short-lived career that comes to an end very soon in a matter of years. We all have heard the stories of sportsmen selling their medals, their hard-earned honors, which in times past by had inspired the now torchbearers of that very sport to make their ends meet. So isn't it justified if these sportsmen are thinking and acting towards securing their future? It is due to these industrial endorsements that they are granted as a result, this because of this public image that they have built in their times, that they are surviving, and not due to the minimal government pensions they are given, as in the case of India. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Utkarsh. And, our last two speakers have given us two very interesting new points. Yudhajit talked about the fact that glorification does not mean that constructive criticism is eliminated, and therefore it should not be condemned. Whereas Utkarsh told us that glorification is needed because it inspires new talent to join the sport, and endorsements and media interviews are therefore forgivable. The first whip speaker for the morning is Pushkar Pandey from Birla High School. And Pushkar was a fine speaker yesterday. I look forward to hearing him today as well. Pushkar Pandey from Birla High School. He will speak for 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Right, sir. So I'll straight away begin. Well, first of all, we must understand something. We must understand the distinction between the evolution of sports that can be retrogressive as well and the development of sports. These two things are very different. What we need to understand that development is a justified process. We here at Side Proposition believe that both sports and development is about inclusivity. It is dynamic in nature and it should promote rather than subdue ethics. Now, my preceding speakers have shown how the glorification of individuals leads to the negation of all these principles. The usage of performance enhancement drugs is tantamount to cheating, which is unethical. The fostering of patriarchy, which the first speaker Devanshu talked about, is the epitome of exclusivity, which is the very antithesis of what both sports and development ought to be about. Depletion of human capital, for instance, when talented players are ignored and the big names are prioritized even after streaks of bad performances. Regarding the point of inspiration that has been raised by the opposition speakers, this inspiration prioritizes imitation over innovation, producing a generation of copies. Regarding the point about inclusivity, we need to understand that glorification of sports might promote majoritarianism as well if influential people who are glorified use their influence in order to promulgate hateful ideologies. This is something which has been seen around the world in countries, for example, maybe even during Nazi Germany, for example, and in influential people use the influence in a bad way. So we cannot just stress the inclusive nature, but in the current world, exclusivity is something that is increasing. And I would just like to conclude by saying that both development as well as sports as a means should be to promote inclusivity and not exclusivity. Thank you.
Thank you, Pushkar. Innovation versus imitation. Very interesting concept. Well, speaking against him from Birla Vidya Niketan is Advir Singh Narang. And he again is a whip speaker, 1 minute and 30 seconds. So Advir, back over to you. And
I would like to start by countering the opposition's argument. Devanshu mentions match fixing, but the same comes from an interest in earning more, because when sportsmen aren't glorified, they earn less and resort to unethical means like Arushi mentioned earlier. Geeta had to sell vegetables in the streets of Jharkhand. That's what happens when sportsmen aren't paid well enough and are not glorified. Moreover, it was also said that MS Dhoni's performance was declined recently by Devanshu. But did he once consider the captaincy which he brings to the table? Can Ridhiman Saha ever do the same? Misleading narratives like the same are the entire reason why the opposition believes glorification hinders the development. It is essential to understand that sports is an entertainment industry, and therefore the fact that it must have a face is indisputable. What is an entertainment industry without a leading face? Moreover, will sports be the same without a glorified face? Do you imagine Indian cricket to be same without Virat Kohli at its front? Entertainment industries thrive on the glory they provide. Will one be even interested if it doesn't provide the glory that it does right now? Coming to another point Devanshu mentioned about new talent not getting a chance. Gone are the days when the main face shadows the underdog. Sports has entered a time of extreme competition following the principle survival of the fittest. This is further validated by the fact that India has such an overwhelming amount of talent that we have sent a team to both England and Sri Lanka for cricket simultaneously. Finally, I would like to end by saying the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So this makes it clear that our arguments are far more solid, and they show that glorification in sports is necessary to develop sports itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Advir. Going straight for the jugular. Match fixing is done only because there are financial problems. Sports is entertainment and should be seen as such. Thank you. We now move to the second set of schools, which comprise Delhi Public School, Ruby Park, and Mahadevi Birla World Academy. And the principal speaker for Delhi Public School, Ruby Park, for the motion is Scarlett Sen. Scarlett, you have as the principal speaker 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Thank you, sir. To quote Serena Williams, I just never give up.
Judges,
fight to the end. You can't.
Your network connection.
I think we have some network issues, so can we start again? Timer.
Scarlett, you need to start again. Yes. Unmute yourself and start again.
Am I audible?
Yes, now you're fine. Please carry on.
Thank you so much. To quote Serena Williams, I just never give up. I fight to the end. You can't go out and say, I want a bag of never say die spirit. It's not for sale. It has to be innate. Good morning, honorable judges and everyone present here. I am Scarlett Sen, representing Delhi Public School, Ruby Park. And my dear friends, I'm here to elucidate how, when athletes are glorified, they become vulnerable to that throne where they are treated as idols who epitomize ultimate success and achievement. We see them wrapped in a world of scintillating glamour that gives them a niche which is more than their athlete definition. Success for an athlete follows many years of hard work and dedication, and in this many years, they will have to enter a cage that is built by the tough iron of recluse and relentless practice hours. In today's world, where everything is caught in an influx of change, we see instances galore where an athlete's identity gets transcended from his field and he becomes more of a glamorous ambassador of some haute couture or say some aromatic bathing soap or energy boosters. Those sports dedicated enthusiasts who are determined on making a name for themselves should realize that the sacrosanct truth that in their budding stage, even a spark of success will come with a plethora of distractions, which perhaps can take them to that crescendo of becoming known in a jiffy. So when they should be toiling in sweat till every curve of their muscles ache to get what they aspire, they instead get busy facing the camera, sporting the right smile, or answering being Twitter birds. I firmly believe that real is based on real. So here I would like to take the example of the anecdotes of Geeta and Babita Phogat from the biopic Dangal. Their Bapu, who was depicted by them as Bapu sehat ke liye tu to hanikarak hai, because of his strict kendos of discipline which he imposed upon his daughters. It was later realized by Geeta Phogat when she let herself get swayed by constant media attention and her beauty enhancement indulgences, which stealthily caused her graph of success to decline, that it was this refractory father's imposed austerity which was the key to her success. I believe this is what all athletes need to reckon, to follow, and to believe if they want to be etched as a sports mughal rather than a popular or a well-known person who was also an athlete. So when Kapil Dev claimed on the silver screen, "Boost is the secret of my energy," the unchallenged reality was and is only focus and perseverance are the secrets of one's energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett. And we're very lucky that the connection was of good quality right through your speech, although it tended to pack up towards the last few words. I hope you have nothing against Boost and nothing against Kapil Dev also. He was a great hero of mine. So you've touched, I don't drink Boost,
No,
but Kapil
sir.
Dev. So our next speaker is the other principal speaker in the second set, and that is none other than from the organizing institution, Mahadevi Birla World Academy, represented by Somdatta Chakravarti, who will be speaking against the motion, and as a principal speaker, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Somdatta, over to you.
Am I audible and visible, sir?
Yes, you're doing fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to begin by establishing a timeline for our motion. Let me begin with the predicament of deserving athletes in ancient Olympics. I can assure you that glorification was at its best even then, as the names of the winning athletes were immortalized in poems, stone sculptures, and special entrance gates built in their honor. The question is whether this has hindered the development of sports. It is a question which faces us even today, which has evolved and changed through the corridors of time. The opposition firmly believes that it did not. At the very onset of my speech, I would like to establish that we seek to elaborate the correlation between development of sports and the glorification of deserving individuals. We seek to put forward 4 constructives today: the social aspect of the motion, the economic aspect of the motion, and who exactly are responsible for this development, which will be elaborated upon by the Deputy Speaker. Our whip speaker will connect our stance to the key objectives of faster, higher, and stronger together as established in the Tokyo Olympics. The faster dissemination of sports news and the players' glorification in them has accelerated the development of sports as a discipline. It has garnered the interest of individuals, not only in the respective sport, but also brought to our attention the glaring socio-economic difficulties that players often have to face. Let us look at the women's hockey team, for example. Rani Rampal's parents were told, your daughter playing hockey will bring a bad name to your family. The same was told to Vandana Kataria, that sports is unbecoming of a girl, and Neha Goel, who was prone to violence in her home. All of them found solace in the hockey field. It is the media attention, it is the glorification which brought their struggles to light, ladies and gentlemen. Glorification of individuals add a face to sports. And by face, we do not just mean movie stars acting in their roles. Next, coming to the economic aspect, which brings me to the second constructive of my speech today. The proposition will argue that glorification of sports fosters patriarchy, that it widens the wage gap between female and male players. Well, the profound wage gap between soccer players in USA was brought to notice because of the hype surrounding the championship, and reforms were implemented, ladies and gentlemen. It is because of the fandom and the attention that these players can freely express their opinions. The Dangal effect in Haryana, for example, presents an excellent view of how the government was compelled to invest more in sports, to promote sports, when a scholarship of rupees 100 crore was introduced to boost sports facilities in Haryana. Another fact that we cannot ignore is how these very glorified individuals only prove their mettle in the respective sports fields, but not only prove their mettle in the respective sports fields, but also pave the way for further development of those sports. The Mericom Regional Boxing Foundation, for example, with the responsibility of promoting the boxing sport amongst the underprivileged youth in Manipur. How many of us knew about discus throw before Kamalpreet Kaur? These examples show that it is not just glorifying the players, it is essentially glorifying the sport and its expansion. Thus, I would like to conclude by saying that individuals make up institutions, and it is these institutions which are glorified and promoted, which in turn helps the development of sport. I rest my case. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shamdatta. Thank you, Shamdatta, for taking us back to the era of ancient athletes and their contribution and their glorification, and then connecting us to the present. The speaker from Delhi Public School, Ruby Park, the next speaker will be a deputy speaker. And that is none other than Haimadyuti Sarkar from Delhi Public School, Ruby Park, speaking for the motion as a deputy, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So Haimadyuti, it's over to you.
Yes, sir. May I begin?
Yes, please start.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. One of the most iconic quotes in English literature, am I right? And a personal favorite. But we are not going to talk about the tales of two cities like Dickens did. We are going to talk about tale of glorification of fellow humans. Good morning. I'm Haimadyuti Sarkar, representing Delhi Public School, Ruby Park, going for the motion. Like professionals of all kinds, most athletes view their job as an essential part of their own success. They are reluctant to say anything or do anything that might jeopardize their career even by a little bit. This kind of rational self-interest is hard to argue with. If success is defined by dollars and the bank and plasma televisions. In an article by Andy Day, according to Mark Peruzzi, many climbers who would previously use ropes to secure ascents are now ditching their protective gear, pushed by the need to produce imagery to appeal
to ever increasing audiences who are harder and harder to impress on Instagram and other social media platforms. They're succumbing to the pressure from social media. Now let's talk about representation. 40% of all athletes are women, but only 4%, yes, only 4% of them are represented in the media. And too often, how they look is more important than how they play and their skills. If this isn't related to glorification, then what is it? Like my teammate Scarlett previously said, if sports person do not do media interviews or brand commercials, how are children supposed to look up to them as role models? The question is, who is a role model in the first place? I would like to add my point of view to this. It is the performance on the field which will help children idolize them and look up to them as role models, not which brand they're promoting or what they say in media interviews. Concatenating examples from my teammates, I reverberate further by saying that the coach Kabir Khan not put his women hockey team into the blood-oozing, vigorous regime of practice, then perhaps the Rakshashoki Sena could not have water chucked India in the first place. With that being said, I would like to end my discussion. Thank you for listening, and I urge you to support this movement.
Thank you. Thank you, Kamyaduti, because images are very important. And you've mentioned social media, Instagram. There are so many others, many of which I don't even know exist. But I try to catch up. One day I'll have a session with you where you will teach me all the various aspects of social media and self-projection and glorification, and thereby hinder my intellectual development, perhaps, but I don't know about that. The next speaker is another deputy speaker, Samridhya Chatterjee from the Mahadevi Birla World Academy. She is the 10th speaker out of 18. So Samridhya, you may start now. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Allow me to begin by emphasizing, ladies and gentlemen, that sports is made up of sports person. Sports thrives because of this sports person. It's the sports persons who put in the hard work, who dedicate themselves to the sport, and who bring pride to their nation. Ladies and gentlemen, if we don't glorify them, then whom are we glorifying? And by recognizing the sports persons, we are indeed not hindering the development of sports, because this brings me to my next construction, ladies and gentlemen, who is actually responsible for the development of sports? Is it the government? Is it industrialists and philanthropists? Or is it actually former sports persons? Well, all of them are involved in some way or the other, and glorifying individuals just provides them an incentive and also puts on them public pressure to aid the development of sports. For instance, take the example of Manika Batra, whose personal coach was not allowed in the Olympics. As the star shuttler, a lot of limelight has been put on the fact that due to corruption and in the government, her performance was affected in the Olympics. Ladies and gentlemen, this also puts pressure on the government to improve the training facilities that these athletes have. And thus it leads to the development of the sport. For instance, young children are influenced by these sports persons. They're inspired by them. They want to learn from them. And it gets the people involved. In fact, watching sports and increasing the sports popularity even adds the TRP of TV channels. And therefore, the channels are keen to feature these sports, which lead to more people learning about them and more people wanting to learn them. And when that happens, philanthropists always want to contribute to the development of the country. That we have former sports persons after whom awards are named. Take the example of the recent Dhyan Chand Award or even the Rod Laver Arena. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the former speakers mentioned that there is a gender divide that comes from glorifying sports persons. Well, take the example of Serena Williams. The majority of our Olympic winners in this year's Olympics have been women, and they have all been glorified. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the previous speakers mentioned that players succumb to the pressure of social media. Well, glorifying sports person doesn't mean that we are forcing them to be on social media. It's entirely a choice. We're not forcing them to do advertisements. They're asked, ladies and gentlemen, and it is only if they feel comfortable, if they don't mind, endorsing a certain product, that they're allowed to do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to conclude by saying that glorification of individuals simply adds to the popularity of the sport, and therefore therefore it does not hinder the development, but rather influences more young people to take it up and more people to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Samrithya. Interesting point that glory is the incentive. That's what generates the public pressure for investment in sports. It creates opportunity for those who are wronged by the system or by individuals in power. Interesting viewpoint. Delhi Public School Ruby Park now puts up the whip speaker for the motion, and that speaker is Aryadeep Ray of Delhi Public School Ruby Park. You only
just
have
a second.
Yes,
Can we
please.
have Tamanna speak once so that we can check her mic? It usually.
Okay, Tamanna, will you do the mic testing, please? Say 10,
Yes,
9,
sir. Am
8,
I
7.
audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you so much, sir.
Admin, are you happy? Karen, are you happy with the way things shaped up?
Yes, sir, very.
Yeah, okay. So Aryadeep, over to you as the whip speaker for the motion. Minute and 30 seconds.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Shall I start?
Yes, please start.
The sports symposium is fast becoming a much anticipated fixture, right, within the academic calendar. Since the inception, it has hosted a variety of industry professionals and academics who have provided an invaluable sight into the world of professional sports media. Tony Dorsett, the legendary NFL player, said, "You can turn the negative around and use it as a motivating force in your life." But is it always true? Because when we hear about people like Ricky Williams, that how the constant pressure of the media drove collegiate and professional football standout to quit the sport he loved. People compare CR7 and Messi on the number of Ballon d'Ors they have won, not the companies they are the brand ambassadors of. Sports people are the people that play sports, and it's clear that the hero worshipping of people who play games for a living is detrimental to both fans and athletes. Children imbued with the idea that sports people represented the pinnacle of any domain outside their chosen sport have been done a disservice. When we talk about sports, we talk about teams, we talk about players representing their nations. Now, if we cling to this mentality of ruthlessly glorifying certain sportsperson, it would alienate the enthusiasts from their core. The only tenet of adherence should be to practice like they have never won and perform like they have never lost. And to bid adieu with the immortal words of Mary Kom, "I do not rely on my technique or strength, but also on my mind." With this thought, Delhi Public School humbly rests their case, but not their stance. Thank you.
Thank you, Aryadeep. Good use of your very little time. Well done. Tamanna Ghosh, we've tested your mic and your video.
Yes,
so you're the whip speaker against the motion, and you represent our host institution, Mahadevi Birla World Academy.
May I
Please
begin?
start. Yes.
Greetings of the day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very sad that the proposition is somehow valuing the real world more than the real world. That is why for Scarlett, Kapil Dev endorsing Boost is more important than him making India win the World Cup. So beginning with my very first constructive, which was actually emphasized by both Samrithya and Shomdatta, is it wrong to glorify the people who are deserving? How many of us really knew PV Sindhu before she had won the medal in the 2016 Olympics? None of us. Therefore, the ones who are being glorified are the ones who deserve it. Virat Kohli is being glorified because he deserves it and not because he is just good looking and resides in many girls' heart. Nextly, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to focus on the fact which Shomdatta had and Samrithya had talking about, that wage differences are known to this country, known to this world, because the struggles of these sports people are being publicized. The publicizing of sports people, their struggles, their brought up, their bringing up is all that is being done by qualifying them. Therefore, lastly, allow me to also focus on the fact that development of sports means encouraging people to actually value it as a good career option. And that is being done by setting up various institutions like Medicom had, as it was substantiated by Shomdatta again. Also, I think the proposition hasn't heard about no pressure, no diamonds. And if they are under pressure, then they are the ones who should be capable of withstanding this pressure. And to end with, I would like to say that with glorification of individuals together, we can make the development of sports faster and stronger, and of course, higher. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Use of the Olympic slogan. I noticed that, and well done. The second set of institutions are now behind us, which is Mahadevi Birla World Academy opposing the motion and Delhi Public School Ruby Park proposing the motion. And as expected, through the course of this debate, cricket has tended to dominate the proceedings. That's because it's part of it's our principal national religion, after which comes the Constitution of India and various other faiths. So I hope that some other sports will also come into it as we proceed. The last two schools, Sri Shikshayatan and South Point High School. Speaking for the motion is Sri Shikshayatan, and the principal speaker is Sudiksha Basu. Sri Shikshayatan School, Sudiksha Basu. Please start, Sudiksha.
Thank you, sir. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay. King Kohli arrives on Australian soil. That was basically all that the Aussie newspaper headline said before the renowned Border Gavaskar Trophy last year. The same King Kohli that didn't even play in the last two test matches of the tournament, barely had any role in the win, but still happened to take away all the credit. This is what glorification does. It destroys the team value in the sport and doesn't give credit where it's due. But ladies and gentlemen, when the motion says sports, does it only mean team sports? Of course not. Here's where the motion stands relevant for individual sports as well. When players are glorified or put on a pedestal after a win or two, it creates a disastrous cycle. Glorification means sudden attention. Attention means more scrutiny, and scrutiny means pressure. And too much pressure means a stark fall to failure. But don't take my word for it, because it has happened before. Deepika Kumari became the world #1 archer at the London Olympics, but watched her dreams shatter in front of her eyes because she couldn't cope with the media pressure. The brilliant sharpshooter Jeetu Rai was damaged beyond recovery because of this in Rio. Dear audience, when we overlook the mental health of our sportspersons, we succumb to the superhuman image of theirs that has been fed to us. We need to realize that they're human beings as well. We need to allow them to make mistakes. Especially at this day and age of social media, any person can practically say anything about a renowned sports person. And the more the person is glorified, the more the scope for negativity increases. Not to mention how extreme glorification can put sports persons on an almost godlike standard. Literally, they're even worshipped in this country sometimes. And need I remind you what the consequences of that emotion could be? Case in point, John Lennon from the Beatles. Dear audience, any sport teaches us patience, discipline, and humility. But glorifying sports people goes completely against that. It gives the players short but extreme highs and devastating lows. Now, sports is a global topic, but why not talk about India, dear audience? So many of our brilliant sports people come from underprivileged and humble backgrounds. They might not be cut out for media attention. Not everyone is. If you know a few very famous names in sports, they're only the ones that did survive the horrific pressures of media. They're just the cream of the crop. It's superficial. But dear audience, what about the others? What about the others who couldn't? Did any of us remember Deepika Kumari or Jeetu Rai's name? Did they deserve this? What about the hundreds of others? Did they deserve this? Did they deserve to have their dreams crushed, not because of their incapability in the sport, but because of the drastically unrealistic standards we set for them? Sports people are heroes, dear audience, but they're not superheroes. And glorification can either make them or break them. And if we really want sports to develop, can we afford to break any of them? Give that a thought. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I was muted. That was my error. Thank you for your speech. Does glorification destroy team value? Interesting point. Speaking again, Sudiksha will be Harmanpreet Singh from the South Point High School, and he is also the principal speaker for his side. Harmanpreet, let's hear you again today.
Thank you, sir. Now, all of us are very excited about the Olympics, and especially about hockey, which has been revived after 50 years. It is a great achievement. And all of us were eagerly waiting for the women's hockey team to achieve something. They have achieved a lot, in fact. They entered the semi-finals and they have entered the top 4 of the world. Therefore, I was very excited to look at the newspaper the next day of the match. But when I read the newspaper, I was completely shocked. A group of people had gathered around Vandana Kataria's house, blaming her for the loss and saying that because many lower caste women had been included in the team had lost. Ladies and gentlemen, this proves that if we do not glorify sportsmen and other achievers from sections of a society that are neglected, this is what will happen. Now, this is not just in theory, we have seen it practically. Let us look at the case of Mary Kom and Mirabai Chanu. They have completely changed the perception of the Northeast in our minds. Now, the proposition is making a very hollow argument by saying that individuals are not important. How can they in fact neglect individuals? Individuals make up teams. Individual stories inspire us and we learn from individual struggles. So I don't think individuals can be neglected. Now, my opponent from DPS Ruby Park said that only 4% of women women sports stars get representation in media. Now I shall quote a statesman, Benjamin Disraeli, who is very famous, of course. He said that there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. So I would request the House not to believe in that. Now the Deputy Speaker from Birla High said that glorification shields sportsmen from criticism. And then he went on to say that it creates an environment of extreme pressure where every move of the sportsman is watched, thus negating his very own point. The allegation was also made that sportsmen are given undue attention. Well, this is not the case at all. Not all sports achievers are glorified. Let us take the example of Milkha Singh, for example. He was at the peak of his career in the 1960s. But when did he get the Arjuna Award? It was not before 2001 that he was given the Arjuna Award. And then he declined it because he said that the government wanted to give him a matric certificate after he had graduated with a master's degree. The creation of role models is very important for us. And especially if they come from a background where it makes even more difficult for them to achieve something. Therefore, I would mention another star from the Olympics, Ravi Dahiya, who won the silver medal this time. He comes from a small village in Haryana. I think his father's statement sums up how important it is to glorify individuals who come from humble backgrounds. He says, now that the medal has come, I'm sure a hospital will come. The village folk are still waiting for a regular supply of water and electricity. I am sure things will change now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harmanpreet. Interesting. We are all very sad about what's happened to Vandana Kataria. Before that, we saw the sort of racist abuse that was heaped on 2 stars who missed a poor penalty in a football match in a stadium in London. Glorification does, of course, have its pitfalls. The point is, does it hinder the development of the sport? Does it distract attention, resources, and focus from where it is needed? Does it deny people opportunity? So let's hear the next team for the motion. Swagata Chandra will be speaking on behalf of Sri Shikshayatan as the Deputy Speaker. Swagata Chandra from Sri Shikshayatan for the motion. Yes, please.
Okay.
Proceed.
Have you ever told a self-righteous man that you watch cricket and he said, oh, you watch cricket? Then name all the cricketers. And you genuinely didn't know what to say because a certain group of individuals have become the only face of that particular sport and other people may have never gotten the chance to be in the spotlight as well. That is to say, we shouldn't stop appreciating the person because more often than not, they deserve to be in that position. But the key word here is glorification. And everyone in the members of the House have missed the fact that glorification by definition means admiring someone unjustifiably. Regardless of whether they belong to an individual sport or a team sport, glorifying an individual to the point where you can't accept the fact that they are capable of making mistakes and that sport in itself is something where we can't grow or better ourselves in the absence of mistakes, it leads to the appreciation of the very sense of sports. Now we know sport fans are not usually known for their healthy way of coping with loss. Either the glorified person makes a mistake and they lash out at them, or in case of team sports, someone else makes a mistake and they lash out at them for not being as good as their beloved glorified person. Take last month, for example, when people thought it was justified to be violently anti-Black just because a Black person failed to make the last goal in a football match, which brings me to my next point. When incidents like this happen, it discourages marginalized people like this to pursue sports altogether. And it actually shocks me to hear my opponent, Harmanpreet, say that we can somehow remove caste-based discrimination by glorification. And also another thing that I'm noticing is that in this debate, we are primarily focusing on one or two sports like hockey or cricket. So when we glorify people from one sport, it leads to that one particular sport becoming more prioritized and resource, which leads to the hindrance to the development of any other sport. We all know sports comes with a lot of pressure. I mean, I'm stressed right now. This added with the responsibility of always being perfect and always maintaining their image might become unbearable. So deglorification not only provides scope for everyone to get equal recognition, it might encourage them to perform even better. It helps ease the burden of said glorified person, which leads ultimately to the development of any kind of sports. And with
Thank
that,
you,
I stand with
Swagata.
this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Swagata. Thank you for a brief speech. Agnibina Ghosh is in disagreement with you. She's from South Point High School. She's speaking against the motion as the deputy speaker. So Agnibina.
To counter Swagata, the last time I heard Pele, because we have all been talking about cricket, right? Let's bring football into the spotlight. Pele is considered an idol by many, many people, and he is a Black man. And the reason why Black people were victimized due to the recent loss is because of institutional racism, not glorification. And to counter Sudiksha, the last time I heard John Lennon was singing, "Imagine all the people," not hitting a ball. A very good morning to everyone. I'm Agnibina Ghosh from South Point High School, and I stand firmly against the motion. Now, since we have all been talking about cricket, let me bring a more regional outlook to this argument. We Bengalis love sparring about who is supporting East Bengal and who is supporting Mohun Bagan, right? But how many of us faithfully watch all of their matches? I leave all of their matches. We don't even watch the important ones. Now, don't come at me saying you do. If you do, you're the exception. Very well. But most of us, more or less, watch the Cricket World Cup matches. This is because, like one of my previous participants said, these people get social media presence. These people get advertisements. And that is why among the young people, among the folks, they are glorified. It may be difficult for someone from a humble or rural background to actually understand the depth of sports, but even they can look at the television and say, yes, I support this person, I support this man, woman, or anyone in between. Bengalis, an entire ethnicity, which was renowned for their football skills, have now lost their spark. Simply because we don't get enough political support, we don't get enough fame, we don't get enough recognition. And this can be said for many other sports. Therefore, I won't be verbose and will end simply by saying that in order to bring back the lost glory, we must glorify. Thank you.
That's a nice line at the end. To bring back lost glory, you must glorify. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But I share your despair about football in Bengal, and the fact that while we are you scratch us and we say Mohun Bagan or East Bengal, I actually haven't been to a Mohun Bagan match. I confess I am rather devoted to that club. I haven't been to a Mohun Bagan club after I left university to watch a match. But before that, I was a regular goer. Anyway, this does not mean that your chair is biased in any way. I mean, you can have any number of East Bengal supporters speaking here this morning. I will not deduct your time or sing songs while you speak. Atri Sarkar from Sri Shikshatan, you're up next. You're the whip. You only have a minute and a half. So Atri, please give us your
I hope
thoughts.
I'm visible and audible.
Yes, you are.
Throughout the course of this debate, side proposition has tried to establish that glorification of individuals does not only hinder the development of sports in general, but also for the ones glorified. They are placed in such a pedestal that it puts immense pressure in them. And for God's sake, if they make any mistake, every single rock budge of the nation lashes out as if they themselves are professionals in that sport. Several speakers of side opposition burst out in praise of how cricket pulls in a huge amount of money. But my friend, if you keep forgetting that it is only for cricket. If you already don't know, there are 100 other sports, 50 of which you and I don't know the names of, and other 50 who do not have enough resources for development. Also, the same people who label Mirabai Chanu and Mary Kom as daughters of country only if they win medals are the same people who accused people of Northeast as Chini or bearers of COVID virus a few months ago. Agni Bina, even though you have a very, very musical voice, let me tell you, Pele, being a black man and an idol, could not stop racism at large for blacks. To sum it all up for side proposition, glorification of individuals is terrible for sports because opposition keeps talking about sports people trying to make their ends meet by selling vegetables in Jharkhand. Thank you very much. This was Atri Sarkar from Sri Shikshatan School.
Thank you. Thank you, Atri. The last speaker this morning is the other whip speaker from South Point High School, Rifa Sheikh, against the motion from South Point High School. Rifa, over to you.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are. Please start.
How many of you knew what is the game of discus throw before Kamalpreet Kaur made it come to the Foreign Olympics 2021? I presume not many of us. Didn't we feel proud about the Indian name doing the rounds because of a performance in a game of sports which we did not even know existed before the mentioned lady made it popular just a few days ago? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I shall be speaking against the motion. We see boys wearing the jersey of MS Dhoni and playing cricket in almost every lane of our country. When asked what they would like to become in future, they say, we would like to become wicket keepers like MS Dhoni. When Nain Morgia and Syed Kirmani were wicket keepers, we never got to hear such answers because they were not as glorified as MS Dhoni. The results of the glorification of MS Dhoni are Riddhiman Shah from our very own Bengal and Rishabh Pant, who were inspired by him. So did Dhoni's glorification discourage them from playing cricket? For me, the answer is no. As my worthy opponent, Sudiksha from Sri Shikshatan said that glorification puts pressure on other players, I would like to point out
Judges,
that
are you also facing an audio problem or is it just me?
Hello, am I audible?
Judges, are you also facing?
No, I can hear clearly.
No audio problem.
I'm sorry. Please carry
Shall
on.
I continue? Okay.
Yes, please.
As my worthy opponent, Sudiksha said that glorification puts pressure on other players, but I would like to point out that glorification of these players light up a flame in the youth of the country, which eventually spreads as a raging fire when they come to know about their success stories. This leads them to introspect that if they can, why can't I? There are very many sports that we would not even know existed if certain individuals didn't make them popular. Sania Mirza, PV Sindhu, Milkha Singh are a few individuals who made the otherwise unpopular sports popular. It is only through the excellence of individuals in particular sports that the sports attains glorification as well. With that, I rest my case, but not my stance. Thank you.
Thank you, Rifa. Interesting point that glorification actually brings attention to new sports that we didn't know existed, the discus throwing championship in the Olympics, or even at an earlier stage, tennis. Ladies tennis, Sania Mirza, and so many others. Thank you. We've had 18 speakers this morning, and we've rounded up our entire panel of speakers. We've done good time. We started at 9. It's now 10:05. And organizers, I assume your results will be released a little while later, and the finalists will get the motion only then. In the meanwhile, while the judges are submitting their results, let me just say that as a team debate, it has been an excellent morning's proceedings. All the teams maintained the basics of parliamentary debate. There was no cannibalization of points. There was very little overlap. There was virtually no repetition, except, of course, inevitably the names of disciplines or a few individual sports persons. And there was very little, virtually no contradiction also. So the teams have evidently conferred amongst themselves, they've spoken well, and they've prepared well as well. The proposition had a burden of proof. It had to prove that glorification hindered the development of sports. The opposition had a pretty strong set of points as well, saying that it does hinder development. And of course, inevitably, most of our speeches were on cricket, which just goes to show perhaps other sports do not receive too much attention because there is a lot of glorification of cricket as a discipline. What I really missed was the fact that in today's day and world, the biggest change from the era of Kapil Dev to now is that when I meet somebody or somebody approaches me to go and meet a sports person for something or the other, it's inevitably that person's business manager or lawyer. They have no interest in who is his physical trainer. There is virtually no face for the technical coach, but the business manager and the lawyer are the ones who manage sports persons. That's because sports itself has changed. The more visible, glorified sports persons are those who maintain a team of business managers who look after them, rather than technical managers and trainers and coaches. Nobody goes to train under Kapil Dev. They all go to train under some ad agency or a lawyer's firm to manage their contracts. That's a big change in today's world. Whether that will glorify them and hinder the development of the rest of the sport, I don't know. Many of them, to be fair, MS Dhoni and others have set up charitable foundations to promote sport, using their glory to raise funds and to generate support for young talent. So many others have done so also, so many disciplines. Finally, the one point I thought would come out is the fact that glorification happens when you are already at a certain level of excellence, and thereby you manage your environment well and you get media interviews and endorsements and advertisements. But the development of sports depends on support when you're a youngster, when you're 7 years old and you're kicking your first football. What does glorification do for that? Are we using the resources that go into advertising and endorsements and everything to set up sports that will help in the development stage, or is that still the government's burden? The government of Haryana, the government of Orissa, the government of Punjab, partly the government of West Bengal. I'm sure there are so many other provincial state governments which do provide support at the development stage. When there's no glory, there's only hard work. So glorification perhaps should look at that, because development of sports is at a certain different time span in a sportsman career. Glory comes afterwards. So with these few words, I think I'd request the judges to please comment. Mayuri is, good morning to you, Mayuri. I'm sorry I haven't said good morning before, and to Shayok as well. So what did you think of the debate? Please give us your thoughts for a couple of minutes before we hand it back to the organizers.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for excellently moderating this debate, because it was right on time. And I mean, what you said encapsulates it. I'm very happy that there were no repetitive arguments, and I'm in general happy with the arguments that the speakers came up with. However, I do believe that I can be a bit critical about one thing that I personally think is very important in a debate, which is that if you were reading, we can tell. This is what I want to say. I think that if you were more dependent on a piece of paper than you were on your mind, I think that is very evident to people who are listening to you. And I don't, by no means am I glorifying one fest activity more than another, but I do believe the debate has some rules that we can follow and some general codes of conduct that make a debate very distinct from, let's say, elocution or saying a speech that you've written down. So, it is important to keep that technicality in mind. That's the first thing that I would like to say. The second thing is that I don't know if it had been adequately conveyed, but there was a change in the way the participants were marked based on the previous rounds, because there was an additional column for team spirit and another column that said structure and engagement. This is because a parliamentary debate is very distinct from the general Oxford-style school debate that we are familiar with. In a parliamentary debate, I am looking at the speakers like one team. I did not really appreciate speeches which were divorced from each other, one man to himself. This motion is very suitable for a debate like this, because just like you cannot have one excellent player in a team sport, one excellent speaker in a parliamentary debate is also not enough to cinch you the winning score. So I think it was absolutely essential. And if you are doing a parliamentary, I actually really appreciate that Mahadevi Birla has different debates in different stages, so that you get a taste of every kind of debate. But I also really hope that you do justice to these different formats and really take them, sportingly, and work on them the way we actually think that these debates should be. So, simple things like how to, have team spirit in a debate like this. There was a particular school that said that we're going to start with the way Olympics were structured in the past. A very simple but effective way of ensuring team spirit would be if the middle speaker said something about Olympics of a few decades back, and the last speaker ended with the Olympics of today. Right? And I was looking for you to engage or just tell me that you had other teammates and what your teammates said, because in a parliamentary debate, of course, it's important to rebut other teams, but it's also important to show consistency and teamwork within your own team. I do believe that this is an important thing to be kept in mind. But that was, of course, structurally and technically. Beyond that, this motion is a very important motion to me because, and I don't know why her name did not come up today, but this is because of Olympic gymnast Simone Biles, who was actually someone I was thinking of when I saw this motion. She has around 32 Olympic and world gold medals. But the fact that she said that I will step away from the gymnastic beam because of mental health issues, and what had befallen her after that is so striking to me, especially because she is, she's my age, and I can understand and I can somewhat empathize with what is happening in the world of today and how that's affecting sportspersons. Naomi Osaka going out of the French Open. People citing the bubble fatigue as justifiable reasons to want to stop playing a sport that they have given their heart and soul to. They train for years and years, like our moderator said. They're training when it begins when they first kick a football. So 15, 20 years of training. And if you say, I need to give it up because I can't go on anymore, right? What does this tell you about a society that only and only favors success? A society that doesn't let you make a mistake because you will lose everything if one thing goes wrong. Sometimes I believe it's important to situate these debates in bigger global contexts. Take the debate outside the arena put it in the world of today and think about what kind of society we live in that promotes constant success, no failure, whether that is sustainable, whether that is healthy, and what that actually spells for human beings as a species. So I am also looking for very intelligent speakers that you are to look at the bigger picture, even when you debate literal motions. I hope I haven't taken up too much time. It's a motion so close to my heart, so I felt that I should go on. But I hope,
Good.
and of course, if any comments or questions, I would be happy if we have time.
Yeah, I need to ask you, you would need to reply privately to this, are you Mohun Bagan or East Bengal? But we'll come to that later. Shayok, over to you. What did you think of the debate? Please tell us. There is a problem with your audio, Shayok, I think. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, Pradeep, Mr. Gupta, I would like to say that I'm your Shotru Pokho because I'm East Bengal supporter, very proud. And well, with regard to the debate, I obviously expected some very good speakers and some very good teams to come up because obviously this is a semi-final stage and this has been the winnowing of the shaft, so to speak. So I obviously expected a very high standard and that has been delivered for the most part because all the speakers were very good in their presentation. However, the one thing, as Moyuri pointed out before, and I'd like to emphasize once more, is there is a significant lack of engagement amongst the speakers. In the parliamentary debating format, we expect engagement. We expect that you will come up and attack the points of the other side. But what I kind of found in most of the speakers, in most of the teams, is that two parallel debates were running. In the sense that one side was running their case in the manner they thought, and the other side was just running the case they came prepared for. None of them actually took the time. I'm not saying none of them. Some of them did try to make some attempt at engagement, but most of the speakers I found did not really engage with the other side, so far as trying to clash with their points and trying to raise significant questions on where they differed from the other team. This caused a bit of a problem because at the end of the day, it's a debate, not an elocution. It's not a declamation that we are judging you on your individual speeches. We are judging you as a team. And in terms of the team scoring, some of the teams, even though they had very good speakers, they scored low on the score sheets because of the lack of engagement from their side. So let this be a lesson on the format that try to engage more with the other team, clash with the points that they've made, and try to win based on those clashes. That is the entire point of parliamentary debating. As a team, you fight with the points of the other side and win the clashes on which you've engaged with the other team. Now, as per the team structures, I would like to make a point about the structuring of the speeches in the teams. I found only a couple of the principal speakers actually delineating their basic stance and outlining the constructives that their teams would engage in. Unfortunately, that is why you've been given more time as a principal speaker to do exactly that. But instead of actually delineating your basic team stance and outlining your constructive points, most of you just focused on making your constructive points. And that is not your job as principal speaker. Your job as principal speaker is to bring out the base of our team's argument, based on which your teammates will launch themselves. Also, with regard to the whip speakers, one thing you should realize is, as a whip speaker, when you have so little time, you're actually wasting that time by focusing on constructive points. So constructive points have been made by the previous two speakers. Your focus should have been on the clash points, should have been to refute and to delineate the clashes where your team has clashed with the other teams. And I felt that none of the really speakers actually did in the role that they're supposed to perform, barring perhaps one of the speakers who justifiably got quite well marked because of that in my sheet. So I'd just like to say that perhaps this format is new to you all, and you all don't necessarily know how to go about this format. But for this reason, I'm very grateful to Mahadevi Birla World Academy that they have included this format in this tournament, because I'll tell you honestly, in the college circuit and even in outside in the open category, most debates are done on this format, and it is essential for you to know how to work this format in order to excel at debating beyond the school's level. At the school level, I understand that the Oxford format of one speaker for, one speaker against per team is the more commonly used format. But when this format is becoming more adopted, and in fact, in future, I believe with the World Schools debate also something that perhaps the schools should aim towards, this format is something you should explore more and get more used to, and so that it is better for you from your future debating endeavors. I would like to go on and on, but I guess that's my basic thoughts on today's debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Shayok, and very valuable points. Remember, when you're in a parliamentary debate, you need to really debate. So in your team, there must be at least one person, if not more member, must be the main job of that person would be to criticize and critique what has been said by the team that is opposed to you. It's like, when you play football, and I cannot but refer to a glorified individual. If Messi is playing, there's somebody in the defense who marks him and constantly harasses him. It's the job of one person in a parliamentary debate to actually harass the opposition and to make sure that when even though you're not being given an opportunity to ask a question, you have thoroughly questioned and exposed the assertions made by your opposing side. Now, I must give full credit to Mayuri for her. This motion is almost entirely her brainchild. I had very little to do with it. She's the one who got me thinking on these lines. She's the one who contributed almost all the words except the word development, because she wanted to focus on mental health. And I thought mental health was too big a burden for 2 hours of preparation on a Saturday morning. I thank all of you for devoting this time to us on a Saturday morning. You got the motion at 7 a.m. and you started debating on it at 9 a.m., which is really, really creditable. So form your teams better. I think the statement or the advice from both the judges was to form your team better. Form your team in the way that one person makes the assertion, the other one supports the assertion and criticizes just a little bit, and the third person goes all out in aggression to criticize. For example, I like the speeches delivered by somebody like Pushkar or, I think against, was it Harmanpreet? You actually criticized the other side, which meant that not only did you not fall back on notes, but you actually listened to what the others were saying. So Mayuri said something very important. If you're reading, we can see you, right? Now, one of the things you cannot read is what the other side have said, and you've come up with your criticism. The moment you criticize the other side, you get doubly marked positively. One, because you're engaging with the other side and you're taking them down. And two, because I know that's not a prepared speech. You could not have predicted what the other side would have said. It is not a prepared speech. And the moment you're giving me a non-prepared speech, I like you more. I like the fact that you're making your mind work on a Saturday morning. So really nice of you. We've had 9 speakers for the motion, 9 speakers against the motion. Like yesterday, I've got several pages of notes based on your points, because this is a process of learning for all of us, irrespective of age. Your viewpoints were very important because you represent a generation that is much younger with a completely new, fresh outlook on life. So I've learned a lot from you. I will not spend my time summing up the 9 speeches for and the 9 speeches against, even if it is at one-liner, if that will take too much time. The time given to us was from 9 to 10:30. It's 24 minutes past 10. I hand it back to the organizers and for the winding up. And please tell us what is the format for the results release and for the final rounds.
So the results have been tabulated. I have sent it to you on the group. If you could declare the
You want me to do that? Okay, I'll do that. Let's see. I'm not very good at technology. Give me about 45 seconds to get through to that. Okay, the following schools have qualified for the finals. Can I be heard? And the 2 schools are South Point High School and Birla High School for boys. So South Point High School and Birla High School for boys, you have qualified for the finals. Congratulations to all the 6 teams who are here today, all the 18 speakers we've had. I am sure it was a pretty difficult job for the judges to separate the speakers. But Birla High School for girls and South Point High School are the 2 schools which will be going into the finals. Over to you, Akanksha and Karen, and please brief us about what we are going to do next.
Thank you, sir. I'll be doing the vote of thanks today. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Harshita Vitta, the co-event head for VIVAAD. I would like to begin by thanking our moderator, Mr. Pradeep Guptu, and our judges for the round, Mr. Shahid Chakraborty and Ms. Mayuri Mukherjee, who have taken out time from their extremely busy schedules today. Moreover, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude towards Principal Ma'am, who's been a constant pillar of support for us. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our teachers who have guided us throughout this event. All in all, I would like to thank our YouTube viewers and our participants for this thrilling debate and their wonderful speeches. I hope everyone had a good day. Thank you.
I want to thank the organizers and the students for a wonderful, wonderful job. You guys have been amazing without doubt. Not a single snafu. So the entire organizing team in Mahadevi Birla, led by your teachers, inspired by your principal, but you students are really amazing. So I hope to see you organizing many debates in the many colleges you go to all over India. And we will watch your progress. I'm not glorifying you, right? I'm just helping you I'm helping you with the development of debating, right? Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Mayuri. Thank you, Shayok. And thank you, every speaker, every teacher, and of course, the team members. Bye.